TI over here being in limbo. We're gonna be working on the BRZ. The BRZ is like my getaway because everything on the BRZ is so new, everything works, nothing's gonna be an issue or a problem like that. Now we're going to be installing something on the BRZ today that was a issue with my 2013 BRZ, and that was oil temperature. So with the modifications that I have planned for the BRZ, oil temperature is something that's going to be highly important. As your oil temperature gets hotter, the oil gets thinner. And with these cars running 0-20 from the factory, which I'm going to be swapping to 530, not in this oil change, in the next one, we're going to be throwing some Haviland in this car. As it gets hotter, it gets thinner. And they use 0-20 for, what is it? Mileage reasons. I don't really believe that. I mean, I do believe that to an extent, but for performance applications, I'd like to at least bump up to 530. So a really cool company called Color Fittings actually reached out, and I don't know why I've been buying all my AN fittings on Amazon and things like that, because I didn't know. These guys have some really cool AN fittings that I'm gonna show you guys, and they also just released, or they're in the process of releasing, their 2022 Plus BRZ and GR86 oil cooler kit, and we got sent one of the pre-production models that we're gonna be fitting up on our car. We're gonna be monitoring oil temperature and giving them feedback and information on it. So we're gonna be getting that installed today. We're gonna take the front bumper off for the first time, which is always going to be exciting, but they do provide some really detailed instructions, and I'll show you guys that here in a sec. Now over here we got our awesome Color Fittings box. This thing, their packaging is honestly like really cool. So when you open it up, you get like this really cool like background image on there. I always appreciate when companies print out instructions, because even though you can go online, you can pull up a PDF, it's nice to have a paper copy when you're installing something, especially something you've never installed before. So with my oil cooler kit that I got, I opted for the purple fittings. They've got a whole bunch of different colors on the website. I'll link their website down below if you guys want to go check it out. I opted for purple fittings. I like the idea of actually doing a color fitting instead of something like black like I've always done. I think it'll be cool, so maybe we'll do a purple theme on the BRZ. So we've got one of our hose dealios here. We've got another one. There's stuff wrapped up in these, so I'm not like trying to throw them around. We've got another oil cooler hose there. We've got an awesome set wrap core, which, hang on, let me open some of this stuff up. Just to walk through all this again with you guys, both of the lines, set wrap core, both brackets, oil sandwich plate, adapter fittings, new oil filter, purple AN fittings because I opted for purple. They also have like teal, a whole bunch of really cool colors, and then the rest of the AN fittings for the Banjo setup. First step for us, let's get the BRZ up on the quick jacks here, and let's start tearing the bumper off. Why did I air the BRZ out when I have to lift it up, Tanner? Why? You trying to be cool? Good. Is that cat pee? A cat pee on my car? What the fuck? That legit looks like cat pee. Who peed on my car? This guy comes off. Next step, remove upper bumper fasteners. I like how they actually tell you everything too. Upper bumper fasteners, fender liner fasteners, lower bumper fasteners, disconnect corner lights, release bumper clips, remove bumper. Let's just start taking out clips. You're free. And then we can come right here, just pop them out like that. It does. Oh, yep, okay, there it goes. Just that one corner light here. Bumper's free! That's done. Bumper's off. Remove intake box and filter, couple clips. That guy, MAF sensor, 10mm clamp, get it out of the way. And take care not to damage the air filter if it falls out or slides out of place. Easy, and then we remove the under tray. Dope! Alright, intake comes out, then under tray. From the clamps. This half of the assembly comes out. Well, that's a really clean air filter. What do I do with this? Is that an air filter in an air filter? That's some crazy technology right there. Yep, and she free. Remove air dam, drain coolant. Easy. 3. That one right there is 4. I'm guessing I already did the 5th one earlier. Hello, air dam. The coolant drain valve is actually down here on the bottom left of the radiator if you're looking at it from the front. I'm gonna get a clean bucket to be able to drain all that coolant in so that way I can catch it and reuse it, because we want to make sure to do that, because there's a couple of hoses that we need to disconnect from the heat exchangers and whatnot that we're going to be using elsewhere. So let's get the coolant drain. One side note is make sure your car's not super hot either when you go to do this. Like, make sure everything's like kind of somewhat cool to the touch. So let's start doing this. Into the bucket. Please go into the bucket. I'm so bad with catching coolant. It's not going to come out. Oh, dude, I can put a hose on that. Okay, I'm going to put a hose on that guy then to be able to drain the coolant, just to not make a mess. Pro tip of the day: attach a silicone vacuum line to your radiator to be able to drain your coolant without making a huge mess. It'll still dribble a little bit, but dude, 10 out of 10, way better. So I'm gonna let this drain for probably about 10 minutes just to make sure all the coolant comes out. It does help to pop off your upper coolant cap or your radiator cap, whatever you want to call it, just to relieve some pressure, and it'll let everything flow down into your bucket there. So I cut the hose a little bit just to let it air drain or gravity drain a little bit. Dude, it works so much better. You don't have a giant mess. It's literally just a 1/4 inch vacuum line that slips over that fitting right there. 10 out of 10. Whoever thought of that at Subaru, kudos to you guys. So this is wrapping up draining, it looks like. So while that's draining, we're gonna jump to the next step. Disconnect coolant lines. Now that the coolant system is empty, disconnect coolant lines coming from the heat exchanger where they connect to the bottom of the motor. Residual coolant will likely drip out. We will reuse the shorter line in step 13, place the longer line aside. Okay, so they're just like these tiny little lines right there. So the coolant lines I believe it's talking about are those two down there, because those are the only coolant lines I see aside from the big radiator hose, So it's got to be these ones right here, because these go up and feed the oil cooler itself. So I'm guessing I disconnect both of those. It said some coolant's going to drip out, which it probably will, and we're going to reuse the shorter of the lines. So let me hop down here real quick. All right, it's 110% these lines. So there's one right here above the thermostat housing, and then there's another one right behind the thermostat housing. So let's get these clips moved. There's one. Who at Subaru puts these clips on? And they're like, we're gonna put them on in the most inconvenient way for literally anybody to try to service them. Don't pee on me! Oh no! Oh my god, there's a mess! Oh, come on! And it wasn't even like a slow surge of coolant, it was like a shower of coolant. Alright, crisis averted. Let me get the rest of these hoses off. So right down here, right where my orange clamps are, those are the hoses that were taken off. Dear Lord, please don't pee any more coolant. Which means I think I can lose this whole heat exchanger guy up here. You're gonna pee coolant, aren't you? Don't drop the hose clamp into the coolant bucket. Come here, hose clamp. So that shorter hose that I just pulled off is gonna reroute both of those bottom ones. Oil filter. There's a brand new oil filter too, like 60 miles on this thing. This whole lower steel coolant line right here comes off next. Just because we're not using the stock heat exchanger anymore, so there's no need for us to keep this in here. And you guys know I'm all about deleting stuff if I don't need it. However, before I pull that bracket off, there's one clip right here that I do need to unclip. So pop that one clip off right there, and then we can pop that guy off. Come on, 210. So now this whole coolant pipe guy right here is loose. Start by removing the 24mm extension screw. This is the extension screw that keeps the oil filter housing on here. And this whole system should lift up and off. What did I just drop into the coolant bucket? Blam! Just like that. No more oil cooler! So just to show you guys the entire assembly you're removing the oil cooler itself, the OEM one. You're removing both of the coolant lines, the coolant bracket, and then both of the lower lines. I don't think we're reusing this line. I still have to go back into the car. I'm just kind of letting it kind of dry up right now. And we're going to be using that other smaller line in the process of this line, or this whole system. So we're just going to loop these two lines back together under the car. Once under the car dries out a little bit, I'll crawl under there and show you guys. So now we're at the point of getting the new oil cooler thermostat housing installed where our old one went. And that's going to end up being this Mocal thermostatic plate and these adapter guys here. I'm pretty sure we screw this into the engine, and then that goes onto this adapter, and it'll slide right through there. But let's go look at the instructions. So the first one we're installing is the one with the two red caps. It's the male to male. There's no orientation on this, so we're just gonna get that guy torqued down. They said that goes to 20 foot-pounds. So I'll grab my torque wrench. That's it. That's 20 foot-pounds, so it's installed. 20 foot-pounds, right? She installed, yeah, that was a 27 mil. I know that's not a normal socket most people have. I didn't think I had one big enough, so I'll link a 27 mil down below if you guys are doing this. Next, let's go get our Mocal thermostatic plate set up. So you're gonna want your fittings somewhat like this. So that way, one of them's pointed directly up, one of them's pointed kind of off and to the right-ish, with the thermostat in the back of it. Now it's time to go install this thing, which once again will be torqued to 20 foot-pounds with our adapter guy. This guy will literally just like slide over right like that, and then this guy will sit on top of it right there. Now we gotta tighten down these Banjo bolts in orientation. Keep that in mind. So that one's gonna go right about there, with that one going right about there. 29.5 foot-pounds. So I'm just gonna round up and go 30 on these because my torque wrench doesn't do half intervals. So let me try to hold this down and torque this down. So I've actually got some spare dash 10 fittings laying around that I can use to hold on to while I go to torque these guys down. If you don't have these, you can definitely use the line if you want to, but if you have some spare dash 10 fittings, I would highly suggest using them. Both of the oil cooler fittings on here now. And with this one on the right here, closest to the oil fill, you don't want it completely parallel. You do want it pointed up just slightly. Dope! Now we can get the brackets put on the front of the car to get the oil cooler itself on here. Then we can get the lines on. So as you guys can see down here, this is the passenger side of the car right now. I'm gonna sit in this coolant. I need to grab a 10 actually. So on this side of the car on the right, we have this bracket here with all this fun stuff. So this is our horn, obviously, ambient air temperature sensor. I don't even have a 10 mil on this. What am I doing? New bracket has a spot for all that stuff. So we're gonna come in here, we're gonna undo this guy here, pop off all of these clips. Now on the new bracket, they actually went ahead and provided a spot for the ambient temperature sensor, which is actually thoughtful because most aftermarket kits that I've seen definitely don't. And here's what I like about this actually, is there's an indented slot in the old bracket that you put the new one in. Like, it's impossible to mess up. Tell me that's not some big brain energy right there, because that is some big brain energy. Oh, I'm supposed to use a supplied bolt for that one, not the stock nut. Or stock bolt. Let me swap that out. Oh yeah, dude, that thing's solid. Dope! What's next? Passenger side or driver side bracket? Time to prep the oil cooler core, which is this fun guy here, our set wrap. So go ahead and pop both of these fittings off. We're gonna put half a liter of oil in here, so just half of this. I'm just using OEM Subaru oil. You can use whatever you like. If you are bad at pouring, get a funnel, otherwise you're gonna make a mess. If you can pour without making a total mess, you're totally good to just pour straight in. So now we're gonna grab our fittings, whatever color you decided to choose. We gotta torque these things down. With these fittings, they're normally ORB to AN, so there's gonna be a little O-ring. So we're just gonna slide the O-ring over one side. Well, not one side, the side's that's not AN. And you'll know which side is AN. That rounded looking part at the top is AN, the other side has the O-ring for ORB. Built a little couple drops of oil. It doesn't hurt to go ahead and lube up the threads and the O-ring on here. Just makes everything seat a little bit nicer and thread in a lot nicer. We haven't done an OG install video in a while. Okay, I did just verify in the instructions, it is 29.5 foot-pounds on these fittings. I appreciate the fact that they give you torque specs for these. Unlike most oil cooler kits that I've installed in the past, they just say Titan. They don't really give you a torque spec, which is nice to have torque specs. And I'm not one that always goes by torque specs, but you know, it's nice to have them when you need them. So, nice tight sealed fittings. Now we can go install this on the car. Go get it installed. On the car. So we've got our oil cooler set up at the bottom. Now we have our Banjo bolt set up here. We're gonna be coming through right about here between the washer reservoir and the tank for our lines that are gonna go to that. There's obviously only two lines. The longer of the lines is going to go to the passenger side of the car. The shorter of the lines is gonna go to the driver's side. Now, one of these has two 90s on it. One of them has a 90 and a 45. The 90s are gonna connect up to the oil cooler and they're gonna go toward the driver's side of the car. So the way I'm going to do this is route them down through where they're going, feed them to the oil cooler, so that way I'm not trying to shove a whole bunch of line up through the core support if I can avoid it. And then I'll get those cinched down. We're not going to fully tighten those down to the oil cooler. We're going to get them just like lightly threaded on, come up here, lightly thread them on there, and once we have everything set up, then we can torque it all down. So start at the bottom, work our way up. Now, for the coolant line down here, we're just going to cycle them back to each other. So I think the best way I'm going to do it is like that. We need both of the OEM clamps. I'm going to grab a rag. Some coolant's probably still going to leak out again. Just so that way, yeah, I'm going to use the longer line. You could totally use the shorter line. It's just, it doesn't seat as far as I personally would like. Yeah, I'm a little bit happier with that. You could totally use either one of the lines. I just prefer the longer one, I think. I can get it down to the nipples all the way back through on the cooling system. Now I can run through here and put all this splash guard stuff on, and we can get the car back on the ground, fill it up with coolant, burp it. Now the last step for us is to go ahead and burp the car. That's just going to be getting all the air pockets back out of the cooling system because we drained all the coolant out. So if you don't have a clean receptacle to put coolant in and you have to start fresh, I'll link below some OEM Subaru coolant, the Subaru Blue. It's what I use in everything. If you do have a clean receptacle, golden. We don't want that guy to move around. So to burp your car, you're gonna wanna have the coolant at the highest point. If you don't have one of these funnels, I'll also link this below. It makes life 1,000 times easier for burping your car. You're gonna come in the vehicle. You're gonna sit down. Once sat down, you're gonna go ahead and engage the car into accessory mode. We're gonna turn our heat all the way up to high. My compressors are gonna go, so I'm gonna start the car. Now while the car's running, you're gonna wanna put it in defrost on all the way up. Leave it on high, leave it on all the way up. Now we're just gonna let it idle for a little while, and you'll start seeing bubbles come out of this guy. Once you start seeing the bubbles, that's when the thermostat is opened up and it's kicking out all the air and it's letting in water, or in our case, coolant. Once bubbles stop coming out of this and it's just kind of sitting like that, you know you're pretty much burped. You'll also know by the fact that your heat in your car will start working again. Like I can feel in mine and it feels pretty freaking warm in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop that guy off up there. I'm gonna shut the car off, turn that off, check the oil in the car because the car did reach 185 degrees, which means that the oil cooler should have opened up the thermostatic plate. I don't see any oil leaks around anything that we just touched, so we should be solid. So let's shut this thing off and double check everything, and from there, we've installed an oil cooler. Solid, I'm right at the top dot. Boom! We installed an oil cooler, daddy-o. So because it's so dark out right now, you're not gonna be able to see the oil cooler through the grill, so we'll come back out in the morning. I'll give you guys a look at this and we'll like close out the video, but super happy with it. Once again, thank you to Color Fittings. I'll link their oil cooler down below if it's out yet. If not, I'll come back to this video when it is out and relink it, but I'll see you guys in the morning. So I wanted to give you guys an update after a couple of days. So we're about 3 or 4 days in the future now. So far, I've been monitoring oil temps. Oil temps used to hang out around 200 to about 220 degrees while I was driving around the car. When I was getting hard on it, maybe a little bit higher, maybe up to like 225, 230. Now with this other oil cooler installed, the Color Fittings one, oil temps are much more in check to where I want them, which is about 195 to 205-ish. Now keep in mind, I am swapping over to a 530 oil instead of the 020 like Subaru suggests. It's it's just a little too thin for me, and I know myself, I'll probably swap to a 540 once the car is turbocharged or supercharged. Keeping you guys on your toes there because one of those is going to happen. So let me show you guys this oil cooler real quick. Dude, you can't really see it at all, which is something that I like. Like, you can see it in person, but on camera you can't really see it. It sits behind the grill. You guys saw how it mounts, and it mounts so flush. It's sturdy. There's no leaks coming off of it. 10 out of 10, dude. I'm super happy with this thing. I was kind of hoping you'd be able to see it a little bit better, but you can't. But it is what it is. So once again, huge shout out to Color Fittings. Thank you guys for sending that over. If you guys are interested in this oil cooler kit, I will link it below. But that is how you install an oil cooler on a FRS BRZ GT86. It's pretty much going to be the same from 2013 forward, with probably just slightly different mounting brackets or however you decide to mount one. So that's all I got for you guys on this one. This car, the STI, the coil pack gets dropped off tomorrow for that, so we can hopefully get that started tomorrow or Wednesday. But that's all I got for you guys. If you like the video, you know what to do. Go ahead and hit that like button, turn black, blue, green, yellow, purple, silver, cyan, whatever color it turns for you. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel and you want to be one of these corners, no idea which one I'll put it in quite yet. But with that, I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out, homies.